So I'm Joanne Trammel. I'm an occupational therapist, and I am the program coordinator / instructor for the Occupational Therapy Assistant Program at Idaho State University.
I'm Lisa Hong, and I am an occupational therapist. I currently teach in the Master of Occupational Therapy program as an associate professor here. Also do a clinic in Idaho Falls. It's Generations Occupational Therapy. The first time that we took this national training class, it was such an aha moment. So it just changed the way that I thought about Alzheimer's and the way that I work with people with Alzheimer's. And I want to share that. I want other people to experience that, because it turns from this drudgery and depressing and negative thing into some really great experiences that can still happen.
And so a lot of times loved ones will be like, well, they just can't do this anymore, when there's really so many things they can do. And that's what this training helped us. And as occupational therapists, it's like, duh, because that's what we help people do is maintain or find their highest level of independence in any occupation or daily activity that someone might do. And so we are trying to help caregivers understand what their loved ones living with Alzheimer's and dementia still can do and have that quality of life by still doing. And that decreases the burden from the caregiver, because they're not having to do everything. And sometimes by allowing that person to do as much as they can, they're not going to get agitated or restless or bored or whatever that might trigger some of the behaviors that we see. Okay. If there's a population of dementia in the facility, the caregiver should have specialized training on how to deal with that population. The facilities need to provide that. And so we thought, well, what if we came up with our own program that would decrease that burden on facilities, and came up with a product that we could offer to these caregivers. So we came up with the idea of a 4-week course that we're going to pitch in November for caregiver healthcare professionals. So it could be a CNA, it could be a nurse, it could be a therapist, occupational speech or physical therapist.
And they don't even have to be, like a licensed staff. It could be a private in-home care aide that doesn't have any certification. So just to come through and learn about what exactly is dementia, what are the behaviors associated with it, what are some strategies to deal with the behaviors. And then at the end we thought, one of my pet peeves about going to a training is you get all this information and then you don't ever learn how to use it. You just get sent away. And so we want to really have the participants turn around and return the demonstration so that we can say, yes, they got how to validate, how to redirect, how to help somebody facilitate them to eat more independently, those type of things. I've also found that sometimes it's harder because we've kind of studied and lived and breathed this for a long time. It's second nature to us. Yeah, right. And we forget that we need to maybe bring it down a notch to that novice level and make sure that people are getting what they need. And they can read a book just like we can. Right. But it's that real practical experience that we want to bring to this. And when we can connect a caregiver with a care recipient and help them facilitate those meaningful experiences, it's so worth it. So worth everything. I was in home health, and I had, talking about the piece of furniture, whatever, I had a lady who was in the moderate stages of dementia, and her husband was the caregiver, and he would park her on the couch and put her in front of the TV, and he did everything. And I came in as an occupational therapist and was like, because I was there for the lady living with Alzheimer's, and she wasn't really watching TV, she was just looking at it. But beside the TV was a bookshelf full of cookbooks. And so I asked her, do you like to cook? She's like, I love to cook. And so I'm like, you still can cook. And it was me helping the husband see how she could still participate in a cooking activity. She could still stir, she could still crack eggs, she could still read the recipe, not necessarily understand it, but she could read it. So we made flan. Wow. I know. So that's what she chose, and I was like, oh, here we go. But we did, and it turned out that her birthday was in that week time, and her daughter came home and could not believe that her mom had made that flan. And it was an education for her husband to see how she could still participate and be part of the cooking activity, but she couldn't carry it to the hot stove
she couldn't, there were parts that he needed to do for safety purposes, but she could definitely be part of it. And that was like aha moment for me. I want to be part of this.
I worked with an artist. She was a professional artist and developed dementia, and her husband just was not sure about, how could she continue? She can't keep painting like she did, and she couldn't. But I brought in, it was called a Buddha board, so it was basically painting with water. And just watching her with that painting, it disappeared after a little while, but she could paint. And just watching her face, watching that joy she had, holding the brush, creating something, she didn't care what the end product was. Right. She'd done that, and she had a house full of beautiful paintings that she'd done. She didn't need that anymore, but she did still need to feel like she was contributing and like she could do something special on her own. And it was kind of nice for her husband to be able to see that, maybe the end goal had changed, but the enjoyment hadn't. So I love to facilitate those types of things.